Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about transitional knives. Now, we're not talking about knives that pass between different dimensions of time or knives that change themselves, evolve, and change from one knife into another knife. We're talking about knives that when they came out, they were so different, so fundamentally different that they changed everything. They changed the whole course of how knives were made and the whole trajectory of knife evolution, basically. And so if you'd like to check out these knives, there's about 7 of them that really changed everything. Go ahead and check out the video. All right, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi to all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, ciao, konnichiwa, and good day, mate, to my foreign viewers. And we're going to be looking at this this is a really cool video. You're going to like it. We're looking at knives that changed everything. And so let's get right into that. This is a razor. Many of us are familiar with it. There's nothing that holds this knife closed or open, and it really represents knives for thousands of years. So knives were very similarly made to this from about 600 BC all the way up to the 1600s. And what you had was a blade and a handle material. Early on, these were just carved out pieces of bone or wood, and a knife blade would sit down in them. But later, they actually became handles, and they got pins on them. Initially, they didn't have pins. You just take the knife out and strap the knife to a handle and use it. But after a while, they started pinning them. So they changed a little bit, but really these are gravity fed. So you open the knife and it would just fall out like that. Later, towards the Middle Ages, tangs were put onto them so you could open the knife easily, and you could put your finger over that tang and hold it open. And that's pretty much how knives were made for 2,000 years. Towards the end, an innovation was a friction folder, and so these were just pressed tightly. The pin would press tightly, and you can see that that knife is not closing, but it takes a little bit of effort to get it open. So it was a lot better than a gravity knife, but pretty much the same thing. And after time, these friction folders would loosen up, and then they just be like a gravity knife. So what changed all of that was this right here, the backspring. And so the backspring is a true spring. It's a piece of metal that was put in the middle of the knife. It maintained pressure on the blade. You can see right there. And so that blade doesn't shut, doesn't go anywhere, and snaps open. Now, it doesn't lock, but they're pretty safe, a lot safer than gravity knives. And also, it stayed closed, and so the blade wasn't coming out of the handle material or getting loose in your pocket or cutting you when you put your hand into a bag to get it. It was in a closed position. And this is the knife that the backspring knife is the knife that went for about 400 years, from the late 1500s all the way up to about 1980. These were the go-to knife, and so that's why they were called traditional folders. It's really amazing that this type of function for a knife was used for that long. The next really revolutionary idea in knives came about in late 1700s. Now this is a little quill knife, and so these knives were popular for a long time. Originally they were fixed blades, but in the 1700s, with the Industrial Revolution in England, they started making them as little tiny folders. And you know a quill knife because all the blades are an inch and 1.75 inches, so about an inch and 3/4. And that wasn't the revolution, but this knife led to the revolution, because what happened at the end of the 1700s, around 1780 or so, is they started putting two blades on them and said this is a two-bladed quill knife, and it doesn't date to the 1700s. It dates to about the 1860s actually, but you can see both blades are an inch and 3/4. They're equal, but this is a two-bladed quill knife, and it was the first time they put two blades on a knife, and so it didn't take very long for knives to develop to the familiar pen knives that we know and love today of a two-bladed knife. But they're also these two-bladed pen knives, are the forerunners of all modern multi-blade knives. So knives that had 3 blades, 4 blades, 5 blades, 6 blades, they all are can't get this. I'm determined I'm gonna get it. They all are owe their heritage to that two-bladed quill knife right there. Changed everything. The next one is a big knife, and this knife we know as a Coke bottle or a beaver tail. It's actually a center swell single-bladed jack. These knives came around at least 1860, but some people believe they date back to 1840. But these were large knives, around 5 inches, and they kind of took the place of these old knives, these old clasp knives that were single-bladed, very large. But by the 1840s, knives had gotten smaller, and clasp knives used to run between 5 and 7 inches, sometimes bigger. And they kind of streamlined by 1840. Why this was transitional is this became the go-to heavy-duty jackknife or hunting knife. And that style knife was popular all the way up to 1920. And, we still have them around today. Some people may use them, but basically it's relegated to the collector status. And so these knives are still made. And, we love them. Some people may use them, but they're just not really production knives. And what did away with that knife was this knife right here. The Remington 1128 or the 1123. It was a hunting style knife, smaller. You can see right here, they're smaller, more compact than the Coke bottle knife, but they're wider too. And so this is a really close approximation of the original Remington. You can see how much thicker the blades are. They're very robust knives, and they came with a cutting style blade, and the other blade was a skinning style blade. These were instantly popular, and even though there were knives, there were two-bladed jackknives, there wasn't anything really like this on a hunting knife, and so it revolutionized hunting knives. They had a lanyard hole. You could put a lanyard on it to make it easily attachable so you don't lose it out in the field. And this knife was so revolutionary, it just spawned all kinds of other hunting knives. So this case 6265 two-bladed hunting knife came out shortly after the Remington. The popular trapper we love today, two-bladed knife, a smaller, less robust version of those big hunters, came out at the same time. The moose pattern, which was an equal end pattern similar to like a cattle knife, had these were really robust, usually over 4 inches, big thick blades on them for heavy hunting purposes. And then also, the muskrat, which was for, small game, squirrels, muskrats, things like that, had 2 blades opposite end. All of that was inspired by this knife right here. It really spelled the end of the Coke bottle. So the Coke bottle just kind of by the 1930s, very few were made. After 1940, hardly none were made at all. And they ceased to be a production knife because of the Remington Trapper. In the 1890s, a knife came out, looked a lot like this knife right here. This is a 2-blade TL29, 3 3/4 inches long. Up in the picture is the original Swiss Army knife. It had 4 blades. It was a multi-blade knife, about this size right here. And that wasn't a knife that was transitional, but it led to one that is. So this knife came out around 1896. Smaller version of the Swiss Army knife. Had 4 blades on one side and 2 on the other side. And this was known as the Swiss officer's knife. It was lightweight, compact, and sported 6 blades. So this knife became instantly popular. Today we know it as the Spartan, but originally it was a officer's knife. These knives are so popular that the style of this knife is made in every major knife making country in the world. And this knife, Victorinox, sells 25 million of these knives a year. Plus, you have multi-blades from France, America, China, all being produced. It is the most produced knife in the world today, is the Victorinox, or a Victorinox style knife, and changed everything. Prior to this was a multi-blade knife right here. A lot of blades for different uses. So multi-blades were present before the Victorinox, but you can see how ungainly this is and how much more convenient this knife is right here. Just a fundamental game changer in multi-blade knives. So we're going to zoom forward to 1964, and you already know where I'm going with this. The Buck 110. Al Buck designed this knife to be a hunting knife, a robust single-blade hunting knife. Wow, wait a minute. Wasn't the 2-blade hunting knife fantastic? Yeah, it was, but it wasn't a locking knife, and this one is. And so that's what propelled this into the fame that would make this knife a knife that was made all over the world. Anybody who was a knife maker made a style of knife like this because of the lock and blade. Now, lock and blades weren't new. Okay, so this is a style of lock and blade that had been used since the 1840s, and really easier type of lock and blade. This is a front lock, and so you just release it and the knife comes down. And they've been around a while, but by the 1960s, there weren't very many locking knives available. So after World War II, because of demographics, people were just using smaller knives and not using these big knives anymore. But the lock and blade was only used for hunters. So tradesmen adopted this knife right away. This knife started appearing on construction sites, roofers, people that laid floors, carpenters all use that knife because of its safety and stability. Eventually, they got smaller, and all kinds of these little EDC knives were made that had lockbacks. That's what they're called. And they even got smaller, and that's how you know a knife is truly popular when it is used in every format. And this is just a little penknife type knife, really small, but you can see it's a little lock back. And all of that came because of that buck 110. And we're going to refer to that buck 10 in a minute because it was really the grandfather of the knives that we really use a lot today. We'll talk about that next. So in the 70s and the 80s, there was a lot of movement to move towards a knife that was not as heavy as this buck 110 was. And, we were already making smaller knives that were lockbacks. And Sal Glasser, who is the founder of Spyderco Knives, came up with a formula that stuck. This knife is about a 1996, I believe, and it's a Dragonfly, but the original knife was a police-style knife, and then came out, he brought out the Endura. What they featured that made this knife so revolutionary was this FRN handle, fiberglass reinforced nylon. Very light, very strong handle. These things weigh hardly anything. He put a cutout, a circle cutout on the blades. And so this is kind of hard for me to open because it's a little tiny knife, but you could open these knives with one hand, and you still needed two to close them, but that was going to change soon. And so the claim to fame for these knives is they were durable, lightweight. You could open them with one hand. They came with either serrated blades or half serrated blades or just a regular blade. And so you had three different blade options, which of course the serrated blade really appeals to rescue personnel and law enforcement. And initially, these knives were popular with paramilitary, military, and contractors. But they also featured a clip. This was revolutionary. So you're taking a knife, which had to be pocketed or put into a sheath, and now you can just clip it onto your pocket, which made it more secure, easy to access, and easy to carry, along with the light weight of this knife. A lot of these knives, there was a lot of experimentation. This is a backlock from Kershaw, heavy rubber scales. In the early and late 90s, even into the 2000s, a lot of these knives had this type of material. Now, it's very grippy, and they were wide, and and it provided a really good grasp for you. But this kind of rubber also wasn't easily pocketable, so it would catch on your pocket, and so some changes were coming along. Um, this is a model that came out late, I believe 96 or 98. I can't remember which, but it had a flipper which made it easy to open and incorporated a liner lock that had been perfected. And you could open and close these knives with one hand. Again, you have this lightweight fiberglass reinforced material and a clip on the back. These, was the evolution of the paramilitary or tactical knife, which was named a tactical knife, first time used in 1998. Excuse me. And that was really the beginning of the modern folder. And so, those knives quickly transitioned over to less scary looking practical EDC knives that featured all kinds of different lightweight material. This is G10. And micarta, other materials, kind of thermoplastic materials, but they all featured the same thing. You could open them with one hand and you can close them with one hand. They were light and had a clip. The modern folder had arrived on scene, and a lot of different ways to open them. So initially they were like thumb studs, but then they went to the flipper, and then the lock bar came out. And again, what shows you how successful a knife is this is a small knife here. You can see it in relation to the muskrat. And so, these things were being produced as little tiny alternatives as well as the large ones. And they continue to evolve, mainly in the locks. So this is called a shark lock. You can see right here. It's kind of funky when you first get these, but they're kind of nice. And so once you learn how to use this lock, it is really easy to use and a really reliable lock. I don't know that it's the strongest lock, but they're really good locks. I like it. They became fancy. Gents knives, fine carbon fiber materials, anodization, really sweet, well-made knives. And that's the state today that we live in. What's coming after this? I don't know. I kind of think that the next major innovation in knives is going to be the laser knife. So we're going to have knives that don't have metal blades. I think we're going to end up getting knives that have lasers that cut better than these metal blades and cut more. So a laser will cut metal where this metal blade will not, and they'll be a lot more versatile. That's what I think the next innovation is, and I don't think it's too far away either. So these knives here, the old backspring design knife, they're still popular. I mean, they don't make up a big segment of knife sales, but even guys who love modern folders are embracing these and learning that they're kind of nice and they actually, have a place. So this 400-year-old technology is still loved and cherished and used by people around the world. And certainly in communist countries where they don't allow you to have a locking knife, they don't believe in your right to protect yourself. This is the only thing that you can get in those kind of countries is a simple locking knife. But they're just as good, in my opinion. I love them. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I appreciate y'all checking in. Kind of interesting to see how knives have evolved. Really only a few patterns, only about 7 knives, are responsible for all the knives that we have today. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.